This podcast is a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to find out more. Hello everybody. Welcome to Mike Talks, the sometimes bonus edition of my podcast that I sometimes do when I sometimes have time. This is the first Mike Talks for 2023, and it is with a good friend and content creator and producer, KEEHLAN Brown. KEEHLAN is perhaps best known for his work on the Luke and Lewis show for many, many years, which has now come to a close. I wanted to talk to him about that and just a really strong content-minded person that really gets digital content and how to structure a brand's online presence, which I thought was really, I often go to KEEHLAN trying to get tips and advice on how to manage the digital output of this show. So I wanted to kind of just have a conversation with him in this podcast. This one goes for a little while. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. And this is kind of what I want Mike Talks to be moving forward. I mean, as you know, it's an irregular sort of bonus edition of the podcast. But I kind of just want it to be sitting down with a mate and having a long form conversation with them, which is a style of podcasting that I quite like from time to time. This goes in a bunch of different directions, and yeah, we end up talking about music towards the end, and like particularly bands like Offspring and Green Day and punk bands if you're into those. But yeah, really enjoyed this chat with KEEHLAN. So let's stop waffling at the top and get into it now. This is Mike Talks with KEEHLAN. Right, welcome to Mike Talks, the first Mike Talks for 2023. Wow. Joined by friend of the show, friend of me, longtime friend, KEEHLAN Brown. KEEHLAN Ferrari Brown, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. First time, long time.
How are you, man? First time, long time.
I always say that to you.
What do you mean?
First time on, long time listener.
Yeah, right.
Or is it long time first
You've
time?
been on my show before, though.
Yeah, I know. And that's why I was trying to make you laugh.
You've been on Harry Potter and the Boys, and you've been like, you used to do Shrek tales, didn't you, on this show?
Shrek facts or something like that.
Yeah, in the first season of the podcast.
Yeah.
Which I cringe at.
Well, I used to think it was quite good, but I miss Radio Dave and stuff. Radio Dave? Siggy Mike. That's what I meant. Radio Dave.
All right. Well, for those who don't know, KEEHLAN probably best known for his work as producer and on-air on the Luke and Lewis show after I left the Luke and Lewis radio show and it became a podcast.
Yep.
And
I had big boots to fill.
Did you?
Yeah.
Puss in Boots?
Puss in Boots?
No. So you were a really big part of that show, man. Like, I feel like you were really it was really undersold how much work you did on that show.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you want to explain to everyone like what your role on that show was?
Yeah, so by the end of it, it was my full-time job. So it was like 40 hours a week, and I produced almost every aspect to it. I was in charge of the social media output, as in like kind of managing Tyler and what he edited. I was in charge of the kind of the content ideas, and if we had any arcs, kind of directing those, and then all the other content, as in like the video and the actual production of the episode, was my role. So that was pretty busy. And we also used to do like main channel videos once a week as well. So we'd have a full episode podcast, a Patreon podcast, and a full main channel video every week.
How did you get into Luke and Lewis?
How did I find?
Like, how did you become that guy?
I was a very big fan of Lewis back, like when I was 16, I used to listen to his podcast every week.
Spearhead Sundays?
Yeah. And then when Luke blew up, I also found him and followed him for a long time in his podcast. When the radio show started, I was like every day, every single episode.
The podcast or the live radio?
The podcast of the live radio.
Yeah.
I would never tuned
I don't
in.
think anyone listened to that radio show live, to be honest.
Because it's really hard to listen to radio because there's 2 minutes of content, 5 minutes of nothing.
Yeah.
A lot of time it's ads. I was a big fan of the radio show. Like I used to go to all the out of studio events.
Yeah.
Do you remember the donut race?
Yes, I was there.
Yeah.
Did I meet you that day?
I'm sure you did.
Nice.
And there was another one. There was like, one of Luke's like live shows Phoebe and I went to, my girlfriend and I went to. That was when we were like 17, 18. And then one day I just see that Lewis was hiring. So I sent him like this pretty well-written email and pretty good resume. And he hired me. And from there, I just kind of took on every aspect that he offered me of the role. So that was just doing his YouTube videos at the start, editing those, eventually filming stuff. And then eventually the next year when Luke and Lewis was kind of on Fox FM on Sundays.
Yes.
I was introduced to that. And that's kind of where
That's where we met properly.
Yeah,
when we were doing Fox FM. You were like the digital guy for that, weren't you?
Yeah.
But there was a guy called Todd Malkoutsis, who was doing it before you.
Yeah.
How did you replace him?
Because he went off to Channel 10.
Oh, that's right. He went to work for Channel 10.
That's right. Because Luke and Lewis could only afford, like between the two of them, $100 a show.
Yeah.
And for an 18-year-old, that is a lot of money. But for a 27-year-old, that is nothing.
Yeah.
Todd was getting paid like $500 a day at Channel 10.
Yeah.
So, of course, he left. So, great opportunity for me. And I thought I was making so much money. I remember I was like, $500 a week. This is awesome. Todd and I are still friends. I caught up with him like last week.
Cool.
And then, so just kind of took over and when it became a podcast. What?
I don't know. Keep going. Yeah, keep going.
What?
Keep going.
Okay. When it became a podcast, I was just more and more involved because I was doing it every single day.
Was it like always a thing that you were going to be an on-air person on that show when it became a podcast? Because you were like the third voice on that show, like the cackling Jack of that show, or the radio Mike if you were listening to the Remembering Project.
I don't think so. I don't know if Lewis or Luke wanted me to be. I think I had a mic with me just to like fact check, and then I think my weirdness just ended up coming on air.
Yeah, that's kind of how it always happens as well. But like, yeah, you were just such a great presence on that show. I feel like the episodes I loved most, and this isn't trying to like disrespect anyone else that was involved on the show, but the ones where it was just you, Luke and Lewis, like no one else. Yeah. I just thought those interactions were so funny. And you were like renowned for doing so much stupid shit. Like the time you went into someone got into your car thinking it was an Uber and then you just drove them to where they wanted to go, and then you threw a bottle of piss off a balcony or something and it hit a girl.
No, we were on the street and I threw a bottle of piss in the air and it almost hit a girl.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then
but I used to throw shit off my balcony during live streams. So that's
really
a meme of that as well.
And then Keelan's Mealins, which was where you talked about your diet, which is absolutely horrific and was like just Pepsi Max and Twisties and KFC and like 2 liters worth of V in one day.
Yeah, that's right. Blue V was my go-to back then. Fuck, I'd forgotten about the Blue V. I'm so sad the show's over now because when I was away traveling, I was doing dumb shit like that every day. And I was like, I wish I had someone.
Oh, when you were in Europe?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You could have been a great international correspondent on that show.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Luke and Lewis finishing up, which was really sad. Like, what was however comfortable you are talking about it, like what was the experience around that like?
It was long. Like I think the conversation started at the end of the comedy festival just because
wow.
I think I'm allowed to, there's nothing I'm not allowed to say, I guess.
We can edit anything out that you don't want to say. I mean, nothing bad happened when the show ended. It was just like time.
Yeah.
So it's not like people are coming to this for an exclusive that's like, Luke actually killed Lewis's uncle and that's why the show ended. That didn't happen.
No. So that's when the conversation kind of started because I think it was really rough. Like we had like Luke had COVID and then was away doing shows for a while and then that really messed us up and then all these different shows or like the comedy festival stuff really gave us a massive hit of like it destroys the productivity and we were only recording once a week. And then we sat down one day and realized that Luke was touring for like 3 to 4 weeks straight. And then I was going away to America for 3 months at the time. At the same time. So Luke and I were leaving in July, going away for like 5-6 weeks. And then I kind of looked at it and I was like, so we have to record 14 episodes in 3 weeks. this isn't possible. And then we're like, okay, we can do Zoom episodes. I was like, but I'm going to be in a different time zone. I'm not going to work. I'm not doing that. And then they were like, well, we can't do that. So then the obvious answer just became, we need to end the show. Lewis was also going through all these surgeries.
Yeah.
And that was ruining him. We were like, the last 3 months was all just like pre-recorded episodes that we'd filmed in like April, May.
Yeah, right. It was such an institution, that show, though, I feel. Like, it was just such a, not a sleeper hit, but it was just so popular online. And I feel like the mainstream media didn't grasp the reach of that show. Like, the viewers and listeners combined were so high compared to so many other shows that are like corporately produced. And I just feel like there was this generation of people watching that show, becoming familiar with the guests on that show and you and like Ruben and everything like that. And I don't know, even during lockdown here in Melbourne, like you guys were doing Zoom episodes, which you always said were like the shittest part of the show. But I think a lot of people found them really endearing and like helpful in that time. How was that period for you guys?
I look back at it now and think, thank God I had it, because otherwise not in a depressing way, I just wouldn't have had an excuse to get up in the morning, just because there was literally nothing else to do. The work I was doing with Lewis, because I was working part-time with Lewis, part-time on the podcast, Lewis just stopped making videos, so I just stopped working. So when I did do Luke and Lewis days, like 3 days a week, it was like really great because I was able to actually do something. But the problem was that the Zoom episodes became so much harder to produce because of internet issues and then downloading footage. So what would take like 2 hours to actually do a normal episode ended up taking 12.
Yeah.
So it was an entire day or 2 days to actually get an episode out. But I think I did pretty well in the end, and everyone like Ruben, Luke and Lewis and I kind of by the end of the lockdowns got into a good routine. And then the year before, 2021, they got so long, the lockdowns were so long and so hectic that Lewis and I ended up moving to Tasmania so we could keep up the show.
That's right. That was such a weird period. Lewis is so ambitious like that. Like, he'll just be like, yeah, I'm moving to Tasmania for this.
And it worked really well. I think it was a really great time because Luke was already in Perth. My lease was ending, so I was able to break it like pretty quickly. And then he was just like, well, we're leaving next week. I was happy as Larry, and I got me out of a lockdown.
And you were just like renting a share house in Tasmania, right?
Yeah.
What was that like?
I look back at it very fondly. It was a lot of fun. It was also really shit because we were in Tasmania, which is a small island with not much. And we had to do 2 weeks quarantine inside like an 120-year-old house. It was the worst house I've ever been in. It was run down. It was filled with rats.
Oh,
and it had this
rats, not mice?
Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. Mice.
Oh, okay, cool. Because rats would be disgusting. Like, mice is gross, but rats is worse.
Yeah, it was definitely mice. But it has this smell of, when there's a mice infestation, there's this real particular smell, and the whole house stunk of it.
Oh, God.
And the house was a house, it was like built 120 years ago. So this is before like modern day plumbing. So where my room was used to, I guess, be the master bedroom, but next to it was the toilet, like the bathroom, split with what obviously used to be the wall of the house with a window in it. So
you could see into the bathroom?
Yeah.
So if someone was doing a shit, you could just look into the...
So if at 7 a.m. Lewis woke up and he's like, I need a shit, I could just hear...
So did the window have blinds?
Window did have blinds.
Yeah, okay.
But it wasn't soundproof.
Yeah, that's still gross.
So
Can you speak at all to like this experience of being a fan of someone, i.e. Lewis or Luke, and then becoming a part of that world and working in it? How did that feel? What are your thoughts on it? Do you think it changes something in you?
That's a very good question. It was very exciting. I remember because Phoebe, my girlfriend, and I used to listen to the show together and go to the show, like their live comedy shows together. Yeah. So it was like a very exciting few months of working, but then eventually you just kind of get used to it. I don't actually have a good answer for that. Very good question.
I guess just because I have a similar experience with Hamish and Andy.
Yeah. Well, what would you say?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would say it completely changed. I've spoken to Pat about this a bit where I'm like, when I was growing up, I would listen to the Hamish and Andy pod after school every single day. And it was like a daily podcast, and it was like the thing that I would look forward to most in my life, even into uni, you know. And then when I first started in radio and I was like seeing them at Fox FM, it was like a weird thing for me. And it was still that thing of, this is the craziest moment of my life. Like, these are just two of my favorite people who make my favorite thing in the world, and they're just right in front of me and I can go talk to them and stuff. And then when I got the job on the podcast, yeah, especially after a while when inevitably that sort of stardom wears off, just for you, because now I've worked with Hamish and Andy for like 5 or 6 years. To me, they're just colleagues, right? And I'm not trying to diminish like who they are as people, because they're obviously fantastic, but it's like, I don't walk into work and see them and go, oh my God, it's you. Can I get it? Like, it's just another day in the office. And I think it kind of does make it, one, I can't listen to the podcast just as a fan, because now I listen to the podcast as someone who works on the podcast and helps create the podcast and is in some ways responsible for the quality output of the podcast.
Yep.
And I have to sort of take on, that part of my job is taking on those responsibilities. And now I can't listen week to week and wonder what's going to happen and all of that. And
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I guess I experienced that with Spearhead Sundays because I listened to that weekly since I was 16.
Yeah.
So then when I started working on it, or even just around Lewis, it became like, well, I already know. I've heard this story 4 times already in different ways.
Yeah, true.
And then
I got that a lot working with Will Anderson as well, because like what you realize is super creative people, they're still limited in the amount of content they can come up with. So, you know, I would work on Willosophy, do an episode, and then on Tofop, Will would kind of say a story or something that was the same thing but slightly rejigged. And I'm not trying to, please don't think I'm trying to like, you know, unwind the quality of these works. It's just like, he's just across all of the things he's doing, radio, 4 podcasts, stand up, like he starts saying you because you're experiencing everything this person is doing, you start seeing the patterns. Yeah. Whereas someone might just be listening to Willosophy or just be listening to Tofop or just seeing Will Anderson do live stand up. When you're across everything, and I used to say to Will, when Will had this new TV show on the ABC called Question Everything, I was like, I said to him, hey man, like it was the debut episode and he was posting around. I'm like, hey, it was when I was with my girlfriend. Like my girlfriend asked if we were going to watch your show tonight. And I just said, I listen to Will Anderson talk more than anyone else in the world. Like that's work to me. Like it feels like work.
That's interesting. Yeah. Or there's that as well. I couldn't listen to Lewis's podcast by the end of it for the same reason.
And the other thing is you become part of their lives on a work and personal level, which also makes it like, you know, suddenly you're having conversations with Lewis about his product and his work that he's putting out and you're responsible for it. So it's like it changes the dynamic of that relationship completely when you're partly responsible for what that person puts out.
It's also funny, when I was away on my trip, I was away for about 2.5 months. I would try to tune into Spearhead Sundays and then just be like, it just doesn't feel right to listen to it anymore.
It's just weird.
And it really bummed me out when the first time I realized that it doesn't feel the same. I was like, this used to be my comfort show.
Yeah, okay. Do you listen to Hamish and Andy at all, the potty?
Only the Remembering Project.
Okay. Well, in the main podcast, they do like it's called a mid-roll ad in the middle of the podcast where they talk about the dollar offer, where it's like, if you see us in person, tell us and we'll give you $1, right? I forgot about all that because those are recorded separately. And I only listen to the podcast without ads because I'm listening to the master version that's going to get published once the ads are done. And so everyone always says, Mike, like dollar offer, like if they see me out and stuff. And I'm like, completely forgot that because I don't listen to the podcast once it's published, so I don't get all the sponsorship content, which I just think it's just interesting.
Can I bring up? We've probably talked about it on your podcast before.
Yeah. While you're talking, I'm just going to walk to the fridge and get a water. Do you want one? This is the casual nature of Mike Talks.
Bottled water?
Yeah.
Nah, that's
Glass? Could do a glass.
No, I'm good.
All right, cool.
When Lewis and I were doing one of the comedy festival runs, like every single night, we had to fill our drive to the city and back with something. So we started listening to Hamish and Andy. And you do some ads sometimes for the Remembering Project?
Yeah, well, I do all the ads for Remembering Project.
So you'll interrupt me like, hey, Podcast Mike here. And every time...
No, because it was... I know about this shit meme that you and Lewis did where... Basically, for those who don't know, I read the ads, the pre, mid, and post-roll ads on the show when it's sponsored, but when the show isn't sponsored, because there's actually gaps in the content where the guys say, okay, Mike, time to do an ad, right? Yeah. So if it's supposed to be, if there's no ad running, there's a generic ad, generally for hamishandandy.com, that I would read, and it would play in place of a sponsored ad. And it would be like, and I think you and Lewis turned it in, you tell what you did.
So it'd be like, yeah, like, hey, Podcast Mike here.
The best way to catch up in the show is at hamishandandy.com.
We were listening to like every episode for like a week. So we eventually learned the words to it. It would come on, we'd cheer. Because
it's the same ad. And it'd be like, hey guys, Podcast Mike here. And you guys would be like, yeah! And damn, I wish we were filming this now.
We'd say like... you'd say like the best way to catch up on the videos, and we'd be saying it word for word, and we'd just cheer at the end. And it was so fun. It was, and I don't know why that one sticks out so much, but that's just one of those dumb memes that kind of just sticks around.
Yeah.
Because now when I listen to the Hamish and Andy podcast, I get really excited when you interrupt and say, Podcast Mike here.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's been a really fun experience for me, I guess. Do you want to, your trip overseas, I'd love to know what kind of stuff you got up to in that trip, because you do the stupidest shit I've ever heard.
I'll say that. I've thought about something you just said, how, as in about the getting excited when you see people you look up to. Pat, who works with you, used to be like a huge Luke and Lewis fan as well. Like, before I met Pat, he gave me a present as a fan a few years ago. And I don't know when it was. It would have been during the comedy festival sometime. I'm out with Ruben, Joseph Green, and Lewis. We've all gone out for dinner.
Yeah.
And then Pat's like, oh, man.
That was recent, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure that was something recent.
It was last year.
Yeah.
And it was, and I'm just like, oh, Pat, if you're in the area, come say hi.
Yeah.
So he comes. He doesn't realize I'm with Ruben and Joe and Lewis. And he shows up and he's like... And he goes all pale and he goes all nervous. And I'm like, hey, man, how are you? And he's like, oh, yeah, no, yeah, I'm good. Yep, I'm good.
Yeah.
And eventually everyone leaves and he and I just walking back to the train station. And he's like, man, like, oh, that was a bit overwhelming seeing everyone at once.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, even Pat said to me, like, I don't listen to your podcast anymore. Like, Pat doesn't listen to this podcast because it's just become his job. And I completely respect that. And... it's just different. Like, I remember being in a room with Hamish, Andy, and Ryan Shelton, right? The first time I'd ever met Ryan, and I'm a huge Ryan Shelton fan. And again, like, I was probably the exact same as Pat. Like, I couldn't believe I was in the same room as Ryan Shelton. And now, like, last year at the Comedy Fest, I just bumped into Ryan Shelton and Luke McGregor. And just was like, hey, and we just sat together at the show.
Oh, Luke McGregor, really?
Yeah, he's a great dude. He's like, I mean, I've met him that one time, and then he did a Willosophy app once, but then he was also on the 100. So just my brief interactions with him, he's a really lovely dude.
Yeah, I really like him.
Yeah. So tell me more about, this is actually this is an interesting kind of through line, just talking about Luke and Lewis and stuff.
Yeah.
What do you reckon, like, I guess let's pivot to where you're at. So you're now like... So with Luke and Lewis ending, like, you went from having this kind of like reasonably stable job, full-time work, and you were, I think the thing about you that I've noticed is you're a really good content mind, which I want to talk more about later. Like, you really get digital content. You're part of that generation and you're really good at managing a social media presence and output for a brand, whether that's Luca Lewis or someone else. But you really did that with Luke and Lewis.
Yeah.
But you were also really creatively involved with that show, both on and off air.
Yeah.
So going from that environment, it must be really tough to come out of that and now be like, and be like, oh, okay, so you're 22, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm 22 and in 4 years I've done all of this stuff and I'm like known from this show. And when I was 22, I hadn't even started being in the industry, right? Or I was just starting. So where's your head at now? Like just trying to find your place in this industry.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to find stable work, which is pretty tough. I work for like a few influencers at the moment, just creating their podcasts, but that's not, the most creatively fulfilling thing. It's definitely work and it's fun. It's more fun than working at Woolies.
Yeah.
But it's...
it's a different environment, I guess, to Luke and Lewis, which was such a creative powerhouse of outputting content, I feel.
Yeah, and the special part about Luke and Lewis was how much fun it was. Like
I can vouch for even on the radio show, but even the few times I came in to be on the show, like you can just feel, I was just like, I kind of wish I was working here. Like this is so fun.
I don't think I'm ever going to get something as fun and creatively fulfilling. So, but I think that is just something I have to accept. But I do want to work on a fun, creative show similar to like Luke and Lewis or Hamish and Andy or some sort of comedy duo podcast.
I think what I like about both Luke and Lewis and Hamish and Andy is they were both those shows, and there's other shows that do it. I like to think my show 20th Century Boy kind of does it. Is like they make a world that they like create a world that when you're listening to the podcast, you're transported to this world and it's like their rules, their in jokes, their kind of, it's like there's a hierarchy of it just feels like you're somewhere else and it takes you out of the real world, which is, I mean, I'm not trying to say it's like a virtual reality online RPG, but it's like you listen to it and you're like, oh, now I'm back here. I'm back here now. I'm not out there in my real life.
Got its own lore.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. It's got its own lore. Hamish and Andy, Luke and Lewis. And then I don't think there's heaps of podcasts that are doing that. I think a lot of podcasts are just really corporate and very slick and polished. And what do you reckon?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what I probably do actually miss most about the content is the lore and the characters, like Margaret Summersby as an ongoing gag and Bo Mill's character.
Crumb, like all of that stuff from Luke and Lewis.
There's so much like vocabulary that came out of that show that I use day to day.
Yeah. And those guys are so good at taking something and just running with it and developing it and turning it into a bigger thing than it is. Like the Warehouse Poo, for those who didn't listen to the show, like the show used to be recorded at a warehouse in Oakley and there was a huge shit in one of the toilets for like 3.5 months and I did a piss on it. Do you remember that?
That's
I pissed on it. Like it was like, think of the biggest shit you've ever done and multiply it by 80. It was like that. So it was crazy. And just the other thing is just the fan base of that show and the listenership was such a community that got around everything those guys did. Like it's hard to cultivate that. What do you think about that?
I actually think that the fan base is like, I mean, I actually have no other experience outside of it, but one of the most cult-like fan bases you could find, especially in Australia. I did a live stream last night and made $250 in 20 minutes just because they get everyone who joins a live stream, who is a Luke and Lewis fan, really gets the meme and really gets around the joke. And I think that's really cool.
Mike Talks will be back in just a sec. Just wanted to take a very quick moment in the middle of today's episode to remind you that you can check out a bunch of my other content. Of course, if you want to see short clips and, 5 to 10 minute clips from 20th Century Boy, all the topics, if you don't have time to listen to full episodes, head to the YouTube channel, hit subscribe, and I put up 5 to 10 minute clips of highlights from the podcast and key topics I talk about on the podcast there. Of course, you can listen to 20th Century Boy. And if you want bonus podcasts like the TCB Overflow, show, an extra 15 minutes every week, and the Pat and Mike show every Friday, head to Patreon, patreon.com/Radio Mike. Subscribe there for a bunch of bonus content every single week. Let's get back to Mike Talks. What are your thoughts as someone who I would consider because I often go to you for advice on managing my YouTube channel growth and TikTok and everything. So what are your thoughts on digital media output for a brand, say my brand, Radio Mike, or any brand? And I guess what do you think about where online content is in terms of, predominantly we're consuming very rapid vertical videos on TikTok or Reels or YouTube Shorts now.
Yeah.
What do you think of all of that? Where's YouTube's place in all of this? What's TikTok's place in all of this? Are these platforms going to be long running? Do you think they're short lived? What are your thoughts?
I was thinking about this this morning. It's interesting how every social media website or whatever it becomes goes through the same cycles as the ones before it. So, for example, YouTube started, it was for a place that only viral videos went, and then personalities developed, and then vlogging kind of started, and then that's when you got your big millionaire YouTubers who out of nowhere are the richest people you'll ever meet. Like
PewDiePie, Mr. Beast, Game Theory,
those big names.
Yeah.
And lots of money being run through. And then it got to a point where everyone was so sick of the branded content that kind of fell off. And then we got podcasts and stuff where you show your actual personality that's not so branded, kind of start becoming the trend.
Yep.
You see that with Instagram, the same thing. It was authentic, then it became branded, then it became authentic again.
Okay.
And then I think that is what's happening with TikTok, because it started as just a place where you went to see silly viral videos, and then it became very brand heavy. Very
polished now. Yeah.
Becomes this is an ad for Menulog or whatever. And I think that you'll see from experience, because I regularly download and then delete TikTok.
Okay.
I think it's a pretty toxic app. But I'll forget about these creators and see them again and be like, dude, you've made literally zero impact on me while I was away.
Interesting.
But the authentic people, or the really niche, comedian ones, you always remember.
Yeah.
So I think there's an element of genuine. What's the word genuine? I don't want to say authenticity again, but that is the stuff that will stick around. And you are seeing a decline in branded videos.
So I'm curious as well about your thoughts on TikTok in terms of I personally find, and honestly, I don't know if this is just jealousy or envy, and I'll admit that it's probably partly those things, but someone on TikTok, for example, might have just say 800,000 followers, right? And then they'll have their Instagram linked, and you go to that and it's on Instagram you've got 2,000 followers. Oh. And I'm just always what is that discrepancy, and how do you why is that not translating to other platforms? The other example is, I find personally a lot of TikTok influencers launch podcasts, and they make a big deal about the podcast they're launching. They do it for 8 weeks, and then it suddenly just stops. No more podcasts. Because I think they thought with their 800,000 TikTok subscribers that they're going to get 800,000 listens on their podcast, which is not really how it works. And they're different engagement methods. And I think podcasts are so much more intimate than a 30-second TikTok. I'm not saying either is more viable, but if you're listening to a podcast, you're going to choose to spend 45 minutes with that person. Whereas if you're flicking through TikTok, you didn't even know if someone's going to show up. Yeah. Can you speak to all of that in your experience?
I think that what you're saying with the followers not translating, I think the translation only happens, and the change in followers only happens when you are providing someone with actual value. And you see that with a lot of the influencer content creators, the guys I work with, 9 to 5 Fitness. Although they cop a lot of shit for being real boys, and a little bit toxic masculinity,
sure,
is what their criticism is. they do provide genuine value to you by watching it because they give you tips, they teach you about fitness, they teach you about nutrition, etc. So people go back to them and people want to listen to them, and they can prove that they know what they're talking about by looking at them because they're so muscular.
Yeah.
So it's like that is 100% value you're getting from them, and then anything else is a bonus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that a lot. And I think podcasts as well are so much more of a companionship medium. Yeah. Like I spoke to my mate Dave Lee. Do you know Dave Lee Down Under, the YouTuber? Yeah. So I spoke to him because he used to do a podcast and I loved it. And it was him and his dad, and they would talk for like 2 hours just about movies, news in the pop culture landscape. And, you know, he stopped doing it because he said it just took so much time. Yeah. And it wasn't worth the time when he could be making more YouTube revenue from his videos. But I remember saying to him, like, oh, the thing about your podcast is this, it's just a companionship medium. Like, I'll just put your podcast on while I'm walking around the house, while I'm on the train, while I'm going for a walk. And even though it's 2 hours, I'll just listen in 15-minute spurts and come back to it until it's finished.
They're my favorite kinds of podcasts.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, and that's why it's so easy to, and again, could be jealousy talking, I'll admit it, but it's like, you see a lot of people, they've got all these TikTok followers, but I just think it's easier to cultivate a following on TikTok. But I don't know if the follow is worth as much as someone who would sit there and listen to your 45-minute podcast or your 10-minute YouTube video.
So there'll be TikTokers who make like impression videos, comedy sketch videos of them pretending to be a teacher at school. And then that's all very good because everyone can relate to that and that's nostalgic. Well, people are going through that currently. But then when it comes to a podcast where it's impressions like that the entire time, you don't want to sit there for an hour listening to that. That's the difference.
Those things are almost like they pop up and you're like, huh, yeah, like that. Follow. Next. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just not, it's not a commitment. And I remember once there was this girl on TikTok and she was making hilarious videos that I loved. So I followed her. I would like all her videos. And then I remember like I just didn't see anything from her for a while. So I was like, I wonder like why I don't get her videos anymore. And the thing was, I had no idea what her name was. So I have no idea who she is.
Yes.
I can't find her. And it's like, well, I know her videos. They were so funny. I loved them. But I just have no idea who this person is or what their name is. And that's the level of like commitment I think a TikTok follow generates. Like you're probably not even looking at the name of some of these people. You're just like, yeah, I'll see more of that, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to say
more. Oh, no, that was it. Sorry. I was like waiting for KEEHLAN to respond and he just like laughed and then looked at me.
Sorry, bro.
No, don't be sorry, man.
But I think people like Luke already had a big audience, and Blake Pavey, I don't know what the difference is, but they are really separating that they're bringing their TikTok followers not just to Instagram, but to live shows.
Yeah. I mean, Luke has always been kind of really good at cultivating a big crowd of people, and he just has that really friendly warmth to him that I think draws people to him. So probably same with Blake.
Yeah.
I mean, like he started doing it when he was just at school, and like he's grown. It's cool watching his career flourish in the way that it is, I think. So what do you think is the future of digital content and these platforms in particular? Because shorts on YouTube are becoming a really big thing.
Yeah.
And me and you have been talking a lot because shorts are becoming monetized on YouTube from February 1st, which hopefully for me means I'll make a bit more money off YouTube because I don't make very much money off YouTube at all. I think I made $7 this month, which I guess is $7 I didn't have. So all revenue is revenue. But clearly for YouTube to do that, does that indicate that shorts are here to stay, that this is the future of this kind of content?
I think unfortunately, but this is something like the same thing happened with Vine. If you remember in like 2012 when Vine started becoming really popular, 2013, Instagram brought out Instagram video and it was like...
Was it IGTV?
No, it was like Instagram video first and it was like 15 seconds. That's all you got.
Don't remember that. I do remember IGTV, which was like slowly... It was a terrible idea.
That came next, yeah. So then everyone like kind of jumped on this 15-second video thing that just disappeared, and widescreen was king for the next like 5 years. IGTV came out, and that's how people started watching, I guess, more like podcast clips and more like actual clips of value rather than just like funny compilations.
Yeah, you could have like long clips on Insta, but I don't think anyone wanted to consume videos that way.
Yeah. And then when TikTok turned from whatever Musically to TikTok, for some reason, whatever the difference in that app was, it just took off. And I kind of hate it. I think it's going shorts. Shorts is the future.
Yeah.
But I hate the idea of someone putting like 6 hours worth of work into a video can be outshined by someone filming a video on their phone for 30 seconds.
Totally. But I think it's just like a reflection of where our attention spans are at. And I spoke to, do you know Mikey D? Mikey D'Arazio? Yeah. Good mate of mine, creator.
Mikey D's nuts.
Mikey D's nuts, sure. He's got a fair few TikTok followers, and I think his content is really great, really well produced and stuff. And I was talking to him, and he was like, the reason I'm going to call this the shit theory, okay? Because he said the reason vertical videos are so good is because most of them are like 30 seconds and you can just scroll through them while you're doing a shit. Like,
that's so true.
It's like, it used to be like you'd watch a 5-minute YouTube video, but now, for me, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm OCD and maybe I'm giving too much away. You'd kind of want to time your shit with the video. So you're like, this is the shit theory, guys. It's like, oh, this is a 6-minute video. Yeah, I could do a 6-minute shit, right?
That's true.
Now, you don't even have to do that. It's like, yep, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. It's just like, it just kills time.
Yeah.
And it's just a mindless way of killing time. And that's why I think these clips are so disposable and valueless in a way comparatively to like, I watched a video on YouTube that was like 20 minutes last night by Struthless, an Aussie creator. It was a fantastic video, so well produced, right? I just sat down and watched it. Amazing. And that's not disposable. Like, I feel like I took a lot out of that video and remember it. Whereas like, try to ask me what I watched on TikTok in the last day. The only thing I can tell you, and probably the best example of a really strong TikTok channel for me is the TikTok 10, right? I do that every day, the quiz show. And I think it's just really interesting.
That's funny. That's interesting. Yeah, actually that shit theory I think might actually be the key, because you can, you're not just going to whip your phone out and start watching a YouTube video in the elevator. Yeah. But you'll watch 6 TikToks.
Yeah. And you can't watch like an episode of Seinfeld when you're doing a shit. So all TV is out the drain. All movies, you're not going to watch a movie, right? And that's the thing. Like with 15 to 30 seconds or 15 to a minute videos, you can shit for as long as you want. It's the shit theory, man. Pays dividends.
That's it. But now with YouTube, I guess I used to watch a lot of it, but because my life is a lot busier now, I sit down at the end of the night. I find the videos I kind of want to watch. I'll add them to watch later.
Yeah.
And then I'll like sit there and watch 3, or I'll save them until I have a day where I have all day to watch them.
Okay. For the last like 4 years, I've been trying to get my watch later complete. Because like my watch later is just videos that I've been putting in my watch later since like 2018. And I'm like, sometimes I look at stuff. No, don't you do this?
I do know. It's very,
I reckon at one point I had like 600, and then in like 2020, I made a point of like, I've got to shave this list down. So I just started, even if I didn't want to watch it, I'm like, just get this video out of my watch later.
It's very funny.
And now I go back to sort my watch later to like oldest video first. So something that and I'm like, oh, this is about some news story from 2018 that is so irrelevant now. And I just never watched it. So remove it.
Really funny. Like I'll scroll through my watch later and see videos like trends. I'm like, oh, I used to really be into this specific kind of video.
Yes.
I remember that.
And I'm so impressionable in that way as well. Like if there's like a new Star Wars movie out, which like in the past 8 years, there's been probably 3 big probably more, right? I'll go see Star Wars, and like a little kid, I come out of the cinema and I'm like, Star Wars is awesome. I have to now engage with everything Star Wars. And then I'll literally like go online, buy like a Star Wars comic book, buy whatever the most recent Star Wars video game is, and then add like 100 Star Wars lore videos to my watch later. And then you can literally scroll through my watch later and you can see a bunch of Star Wars videos, and I'm just like, oh, I don't care about this at all anymore. And it's like, I'm positive when another Star Wars movie comes out, I'll do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what these companies want to happen, is like, get them in to see the movie, and then they'll just want to spend money on our franchise, basically.
It's true.
I do it with Avengers, any Marvel thing. I come home and I go to like Comics Explained and find all the Marvel lore, shit like that.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
When you put in something and you watch later, you don't really have any intention of watching it. You're just hoping that in 3 days you'll be in the same mindset.
Yeah, but if you wanted to watch it, you'd just watch it now. Like that's the thing. But even I actually think now I even go for shorter videos on YouTube. Like I'll go for a 5 to 10 as opposed to a 10 to 20, just because that's the window of time I have to watch.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess consuming habits have really changed. Last year, 2022, this YouTube guy, Ryan Trahan, who's like got some of the best storytelling videos you'll ever see.
Yeah.
He made this series called the Penny Series, and he started with one US penny, and he had to get from California to North Carolina within a month.
Okay.
That was his challenge. And it was every single day for a month, like 10 to 15 minute video came out, just updating his day, showing how much money he made or whatever. And from episode 1, it came out at midnight every night for us, our time zone. So every night at midnight, Phoebe and I would sit down and we would put it on the TV and watch it.
Yeah,
because
right.
it was like an event.
An event television. Yeah. So who do you think in the YouTube space, I mean, I know you like Mr. Beast, but who else do you like, and who are some Australian creators that you think are underrated or really successful on YouTube?
I really like Ryan Trahan. I think he's one of the kings. Logan Paul, not that we love what he does here, but he had a very good, like, at one point his videos were very high production and quite mature compared to what they used to be.
Yeah.
And they used to be like events if he ever came out with one. I think Struthless is one that I agree with. Every time he's got a video, no matter where I am, I'll sit and watch it.
Yeah, cool. I've only recently gotten into him, but yeah. I mean, I really like Matt Pat, who does Game Theorist and Film Theory. Yeah. They're some really well-produced pop culture channels. I think, can I ask you, can you keep going for a bit longer?
Yeah,
cool.
Yes Theory is the other one. They're have you seen them?
Nah.
They're
Yes Theory?
Yes Theory. They make like full documentary kind of things now, and any time a video is released, like Phoebe and I will put it on the TV and watch it.
What topics do they cover?
Their whole like philosophy is say yes and seek discomfort is kind of their whole thing.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, they do a week in Afghanistan or 7 days in Syria.
Okay.
They'll go to the worst country in Europe. And it's a very nice travel-y kind of thing to show you that there is good in everything.
I think I stray away from, I don't stray away from channels like that. I don't get magnetized to channels like that. Like, I more go on YouTube to hear people, basically to see people talking about stuff that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, for example, and this is a very me example, but there's the final season of the Pokemon anime where Ash Ketchum, do you know Ash Ketchum?
Is this still going?
Yeah. It's the longest running, I think it's one of the longest running animes, right? But you know Ash Ketchum, the character. So he's being retired as a character. This is his last season on the show. So the first episode came out in Japan and I watched it. And then there was a channel that was just doing a review on it. So I was like, I want to know what other people thought about this, right? That's more what I go to YouTube for, not necessarily like evergreen content. I'm more going for like content that I specifically want to see right now that you can't get anywhere else. Nowhere on Australian TV are they going to have someone talking about what I want to hear, which is the Pokemon anime, right? You're just not going to find it anywhere else. That's why I think so many people are drawn to online content, because Aussie TV just covers bullshit Aussie TV shit. Like reality, like all this stupid shit that most people don't care about because we all live online anyway. So, yeah.
Do you consume YouTube videos like podcasts?
Yeah, I've got YouTube Premium, so sometimes I'll just have it in my pocket, my phone in my pocket, and have my headphones in.
Yep.
But I find the volume on YouTube is always so low. Have you noticed that?
No.
Like on every video I listen to, it's way too low.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. The problem with listening to videos as podcasts is there is a huge inconsistency with
Of volume?
and production value.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
There's some podcasts, some videos you can watch, but you can't just listen to it without the video.
Yeah. So, okay, so tell me so shorts are here to stay. Do you ultimately think good thing or bad thing, this short form vertical content?
Probably actually a good thing, because then the really high production videos that aren't shorts will stand out.
Yeah.
Because you will remember series like the Penny Challenge or the Easy S Theory kind of videos.
Yeah.
So I think in the long term, it probably is a good thing to have the two very different kinds of media. And I really like actually what Mikey said, the shit theory. It is disposable media. That's like kind of a good thing.
Yeah, okay.
Also, like, came out at a very good time when everyone was very sad and depressed during lockdown.
Yeah.
So short form is probably a good thing to help.
Yeah. I've taken a new approach to my YouTube channel in the past like 6 months, where now I am just basically my full podcast goes up and then I cut that into 3 or 4 topical clips that I put up.
I think that's the best way to do it.
And put shorts up. Yeah. And I remember when I was producing Willosophy, Broden Kelly from Auntie Donna came on and they were talking about YouTube and the YouTube model and stuff. And I remember Broden saying the only way to get big on YouTube now, or the only way to grow on YouTube now, is to be putting out basically a 5 to 15 minute video every single day, basically. That's how your channel gets pushed out there. That's how YouTube knows that you're making consistent content, rather than just putting up one video a week. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I actually would disagree with him.
Okay.
I'd say that one high quality video, one really, it depends actually, because you're more podcast based. But
and I'm still, I'm a growing channel. Like, I'm not that established.
If we look at bigger, like millions subscribers stuff, the big like 10 to 20 minute high, super crazy high production value videos, they're the ones that always do really well.
Okay.
It's very rare that you'll just find someone like just talking to the camera, blowing up and getting millions of views a day. I think that's very 2018 to 2020 kind of vibes.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
But that doesn't mean there's not a spot for it.
Yeah.
There's still a market for it, and that's how I consume all my podcasts.
Just through clips?
Through clips.
Yeah.
Or YouTube at least.
I know, like, Lewis was such a pioneer in that sort of space.
Yeah.
Like, he was always saying to everyone, you need to do a video podcast. Like, no one just wants another podcast. And I've noticed, like, just having clips across all platforms, whether it's shorts, reels, TikToks, YouTube clips, it's just your presence. It's more just like people seeing you everywhere. And yeah, you're right. Like, they're not necessarily listening to your pod as a pod, but they're seeing you all over the internet and consuming your podcast in that way.
Yeah.
So it's like your brand familiarity is growing.
Yeah, that's probably right. And then if you do upload a 5 to 10 minute video every day of you talking, you become a constant for people. That's something I find, like Philip DeFranco is a daily news show.
Yeah.
Every day I wake up, I know I can rely on him to listen to fill me in on the news. And
that's the thing, like, a lot of conservative commentators are adapting that model as well. Like, whether you like it or hate it, like Ben Shapiro, he does a daily radio show. He clips it all up. It's all over TikTok.
Yeah.
Like, all of these people are adopting it. And I think it's a good strategy. Like, just do a daily thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
We've been waffling on a lot about content a lot.
Waffle.
In the morning, I'm making waffles. Mike Talks, we'll be right back. Another small interruption, everyone. Just a reminder that you can check out my other podcast, Harry Potter and the Boys, right now. It's a Harry Potter fan fiction that I wrote when I was 13 years old, and it's wacky and exactly as absurd and ridiculous and stupid as you would expect from a 13-year-old's writing. It is absolutely insane, with a ton of graphic sexual references and just a comedy masterpiece. I'm joined by comedian Sam Garlep most weeks, who is a writer on Channel 10's The Cheap Seats and The 100 with Andy Lee. It's great fun, and I'd love for you to go and check it out and make it your new favourite podcast of 2023. Now, back to my chat with Keelan. Let's do the final question of Mike Talks.
Okay.
Which is 4 questions, really.
Cool.
What is one, and you don't have to answer all of them if you're not interested, but what is one movie, book, album, and video game that you think everyone should experience in their life? Doesn't have to be like the best of all time, just something you think you loved and you think everyone should experience.
I don't have a video game.
Okay.
So I've only
Never
ever
been
played
into them?
like Grand Theft Auto.
Okay.
I played that for 10 years straight, and I only recently just got sick of it.
But don't you think that could be it?
No, I don't think it's for everyone.
Can I tell this? Can I actually tell you this story? Sorry to interrupt. So when I used to live in Northcote, I think you might have come to my Northcote house once or twice. I lived with my mate Daniel, and I got my PS5. And when you get a PS5, I think in a pre-order, you get access to like the PlayStation Classics, which is like 20 games for free. One of them was God of War. And so my friend Daniel, it was over summer, and my friend Daniel was like, hey, can I just play God of War like over the next few weeks? I'm like, yeah, of course, man. So, he started playing God of War, and every day I would get home all through summer for like 4 weeks. Every day I would come home and he would be sitting right in front of the TV, just playing God of War, barely looking, like addicted to this game.
Yeah.
Absolutely addicted. And then, 4 weeks later, I noticed he was no longer playing it. And I went to him, oh, did you finish God of War? And he was like, yeah, I did. And just a reminder, every single day in front of the screen for hours, early hours of the morning, he'd just be up because he was on holidays. And then I went, oh, was it good? And he was just like, yeah, it was all right. I was like, you've spent like 80% of the last 4 weeks playing that game, and you're just like, yeah, it was okay. I think you fucking loved it, mate. Okay, so maybe not GTA.
Not GTA.
Okay.
Book, also, I don't know. I'm reading Spare by Prince Harry.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Can I actually pose something to you about that I find fascinating?
Yeah.
You know how like we hear about, say, King Henry VIII? Like we know of him.
Yeah.
But we don't, like you just know of him. He had a bunch of wives. He killed a few of them. He founded the Church of England, like all of that stuff. Don't you think it's fascinating that in 500 years, historians could actually get the audiobook of Prince Harry's book and listen to him speak out his life?
Yeah.
Like imagine if we could do that for King Henry VIII. I just think that's a marvel in what the future might be and how we can document people's lives so much better. I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah. I kind of thought the same thing, that it's crazy. This is the first royal to ever really write about their life.
Yeah.
And I think as much grief as people want to give him, and there's valid criticism in that in like 30 to 40 years, everyone's going to look back at it and go, what the fuck? Why did we even have a royal family?
Yeah.
These people were tortured.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fine to hate them, because I kind of agree. They're very problematic, but I do think that it's good that he's breaking the barrier of talking about it, because some of the stuff he went through, I know you're reading it.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's fucked.
Oh.
Of course the guy is crazy.
Oh, yeah. You read this, like, I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for all of them, because it is a double-edged sword in the sense that all of us can look at them and be like, well, you're kings and queens. You're literally rich. You're protected by the institution. You make the rules, right? We don't feel sorry for you. But then you actually realize, okay, they're born into this life that they don't want to live at all. Prince Harry like clearly didn't want the pressure of being a royal, and he was like, he talks about how he was like smoking pot and doing lines of coke and stuff when he was a teenager and a young adult, and it's like, well, most people when they start growing up start experimenting with that kind of stuff, but because he was a royal, it was just like a scoop, it was a scandal, and he basically just everything he did he was persecuted by, and then he says, well, I want to leave, and then everyone gets angry at him for wanting to leave, and then when he hits back, everyone criticizes him more. If he stays quiet, they'll criticize him more. So I think for him, it's just like, no matter what I do, I'm fucked. So
exactly.
But, you know, but I think people don't feel sorry for them because they're wealthy. And a lot of people see wealth as like a cure to problems. Yes. And I think like my dad is very much like, well, if I had that much money, I wouldn't be upset because, you know, I think my dad's life is so much different to the royals because he grew up as a child of Italian immigrants in Melbourne who didn't have any money. So in his mind, it's like, if I'll take your money and then you can live my life where I didn't have, do you know what I mean? It's that mindset.
Okay. Yeah, I think my dad's the same. I had a similar conversation the other day with him and I was like, regardless of what you actually think, you can feel sorry for him. And he was like, no. He hasn't even renounced his title as prince. I was like, I see it from a different perspective though. You don't just have to hate him. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I feel sorry for him. I also think some of it's stupid. Yeah. But then when I do think about it, I'm like, well, he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Exactly. Like there's no way out for him. And that's what's shit about it.
I also think if us as everyday people wrote as detailed about our lives growing up as he did, I'd probably read your story and go, oh, shut up, Mike. Yeah. It wasn't that bad. And you do the same to my story.
Yeah. I think the thing about it though is it's like most of these books, I think it's very clearly ghost written because like writing.
Some of it, oh my God, yes.
Yeah, writing is a skill. Like I'm listening to this audiobook and I'm like, there's no way Prince Harry thought of describing the garden as this. Like all the descriptive, like just the way it's written. It's like you're just some prince. You don't have this skill set in writing that you could have possibly written all of this. Don't you think?
I was thinking about it because I listened to it while I'm at the gym. It's like a 14-hour long book.
Yeah.
Audio book. I was listening to it today and I was like, he must have just, I'm up to a part where he's talking a lot about his therapy.
Okay.
It seems like part of the reason, other than the $20 million book deal he got, was it's therapeutic to get it all out.
Totally.
I reckon he might have just sat down with some lady and just talked out of his ass for like a week. And then she's going, all right, I'll find something in this.
Yeah.
I reckon that's what she's done.
Yeah, there's definitely a ghostwriter involved.
It has to be. Some of the stuff he'll say is like incredibly profound. And the next sentence is like the worst written paragraph you've ever seen.
Some stupid shit. Yeah. All right. Movie?
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Oh, Wes Anderson?
Wes Anderson.
I've seen that.
Beautiful.
What do you like about it so much?
It's just beautiful. It's a very nice story and it's very funny.
Based on the book by
Roald Dahl.
It is Roald Dahl? Yeah. And is it stop motion?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very
beautiful.
Very like, oops, just burped. Very like the Nightmare Before Christmas kind of animation style, if you've seen that, where it's like almost like clay figures, like, and they're being, No, that is a good movie.
Yeah. And then favorite album, not so much. True Colors by the Split Ends.
Oh.
You should listen.
Is it the Split Ends or just Split Ends?
I don't know.
Because there's an old Australian band called Split Ends.
Yeah, the old Australian band.
Yeah, it's just Split Ends.
Yeah, Split Ends.
It's ENZ, right?
ENZ, yeah. I think True Colors is their most popular album, but it's great to listen to. They're like a different style in there.
Okay. I've never heard it. Maybe I'll listen to that for Mike Listens in the next week.
Otherwise, my favorite album for the last few years has been 14 Steps to a Better You.
Lime Cordial.
I just love the tune, like the themes of the songs.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we've been going for like an hour. Thanks for staying so long. Usually I only go for like 40 minutes.
Good. Well, can I ask, what did you think of the Lime,
a
more extended review of the Lime Cordial 14 Steps to a Better You?
Yeah. I mean, for those who don't know, I'm doing this thing. It's called Mike Listens. I'm trying to listen to not a new album, just an album every weekday. And then I'm doing basically a 1-minute review on Insta and TikTok and then a written review on Insta. more just to keep a diary of what I'm listening to. I thought it was good. I'd heard a bunch of the songs before. I thought it was really chill. It felt like a bit of a stoner album in a way, like not stoner rock, but like just really chilled out kind of surfy electronic music. Would you describe it as electronic? It's not really electronic, but
I don't know how to describe it. I'd say surfy,
alternative,
stoner is
yeah.
kind of.
It felt like an album you put on when your friend's having a little fire night at his house and everyone's smoking some weed. Yeah. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it, man. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of, I'd like to revisit a lot of these albums because I'm like, when you like I want to listen to more albums, right? And it all started when we went to The Offspring together. Yeah. And one thing I really like doing is just listening to an album, listening to a band's discography chronologically, and just feeling and watching and hearing the development. And what I've realized about Offspring, because I've been doing that with them, is like they're very consistent. Like they don't really evolve that much, which I think is a good thing for them because they've got such an iconic sound. Like they just sort of know, like they've started to, I'm on like their third most recent album, which is I did today, which is called Rise and Fall something and Grace.
Oh wait, no. What? I'm thinking of Days Have Passed or something. That's
Days Gone By.
Oh, that's such a banger.
That's the next one. Yeah. So Days Gone By Offspring. Sorry to detour again, but
go for
the
it.
album artwork of that album, can you picture it in your mind?
Days Gone By.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically a park bench in a forest, and on one side there's an old man and on the other side is a little kid. And it just, ever since I saw that album artwork, it just really spoke to me. Like, this is what life is. It's just days gone by. That's a good album. I'm going to listen to it again in the next week. But I'm on the one before that with You're Gonna Go Far Kid and Christy, Are You Doing Okay? Some really good songs on that. But
on that Days Gone By album, I started listening to Offspring when I was like 13.
Yeah.
As did everyone, but that was only 10 years ago. So it was their most recent album at the time.
Yeah.
I remember listening to it and finding it funny because some of the songs are so incredible. And there's one that's called California Bouncing.
Oh, Bouncing.
Bumping or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's the worst song that I've ever
see,
read.
okay, I was listening to that song this morning, funnily enough. It's called Cruisin' California, and then in brackets, Bumpin' in My Trunk. And it's
Bumpin' in My Trunk.
The thing about The Offspring and what I've found from going through their discography is all of their albums have a really big mix of really serious sort of sounding songs. And then they all have a very kind of bouncy, more juvenile song, whether it's Pretty Fly for a White Guy, Why Don't You Get a Job, Spare Me the Details. They're just a bit more like goofy, right? Yeah. Compared to like Self-Esteem, which is a very grungy, sad song, right? I reckon California Cruisin' is actually a really good song because it's supposed to be a satire of what pop music sounded like at the time. So it's all like, I know you feel it, bumping in my trunk, bumping in my trunk. And I think it's actually them, I thought it was them trying to call back to Pretty Fly for a White Guy because it is very similar to that song in a way. Yeah. But I know what you mean. It definitely stands out.
Stands out and makes a big impact.
Yeah, and that song, like I was reading the Wikipedia article for it because it was a single as well. Ugh. And apparently it was like, at the time, really polarized. But like some fans were like, what the fuck? But then other fans were like, yeah, this is what The Offspring does. Like they do this, like Pretty Fly for a White Guy is a pretty out there song. Like it's literally like older girlies, you know what I mean? Like it's different. And I think they were channeling that.
I feel like Green Day went through the same kind of thing around the same era when they released Uno,
Dos and Trey. Yeah. So I'll just context. After American Idiot, 5 years later, Green Day did another album called 21st Century Breakdown, which was like...
Great album.
But it was basically like, okay, let's just do American Idiot again, but longer. Like bigger, fatter, chunkier, right? That's what it was. And that was a successful album, but it wasn't as critically as poignant as American Idiot, which was a groundbreaking album in 2004. So then they just did a trilogy of albums, Uno, Dos, and Trey, and they were like, they're some of the most polarizing things the band's ever done. But what were you saying?
I think there's some of, like, not their best songs, but I actually really like them, and a lot of the songs from Uno and Dos especially would be in like my top listens of all time.
I agree. I actually think, I mean, some of the songs are stinkers, but some are amazing. And I actually think, thinking philosophically about that trilogy of albums, I kind of think that was the point. It was like, all right, we're just going to record like 30 songs of varying quality, and we're just going to put them out. We're just going to smash out content. And I think it was a cool experiment, but songs like Let Yourself Go from Uno, See You Tonight from Dose, and Oh Love, like there's heaps of great tracks on that trilogy. What ones stand out to you?
Nuclear Family does for some reason. One of the songs
I love Nuclear Family. Gonna ride the world like a merry-go-round.
I remember listening to it and being like, this is cool.
Yeah, it was kind of like going back to like Uno especially was sort of going back to their punk roots, but it was just much more slickly produced, don't you reckon?
Yeah.
Like they just had $1 million budget, so it sounded really slick, but the music was very pop punky.
I'm just trying to find the albums now.
Oh, we should do another pod just reviewing Green Day albums.
We can do that. You want to do that right now?
Well, not right now. This is Mike Talks, not Mike Talks Green Day.
Carpe Diem, that was one.
Carpe diem, a battle cry. Are we all too young to die?
And
I'm going to put the audio in.
Stray Heart and Lazy Bones.
Okay, everyone listen to Stray Heart by Green Day. That's my favorite song on the trilogy. Didn't we do Stray Heart on Keelan's Mealans that I was on? We both sung it.
Oh,
there's a YouTube video of it.
And then from Trey, bit of a lackluster album in my opinion.
I like Trey. There's a song called X Kid, which is really good.
Yeah, X Kid is
99 Revolutions. And then what's like the second last track? Is it Dirty Rotten Bastards? That's a good song as well.
Oh yeah, Dirty Rotten Bastards.
Yeah.
And I loved Revolution Radio as well.
Yeah. Revolution Radio was the next album, and then they did Father of All, which me and you have talked a lot about Father of All because it was one of the most controversial things they ever did.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it was a 28-minute album, and a lot of people think it was just them trying to get out of their record label deal because they had one more album left.
Father of All is a good song.
I actually think if any new indie rock band came out with that album, it would have been really popular, but because it was Green Day and it was just so different to anything they'd ever done and it was so weird, the marketing and publicity around the album was weird, people hated it. But yeah, Father of All, Ready Aim Fire, Fire Ready Aim, and Meet Me on the Roof.
Oh, Meet Me on the Roof is so good.
Meet Me on the Roof is one of my favorite Green Day songs of all time.
Yeah.
I just think it harkens back to like 50s and 60s rock with like the piano riff and everything. I just think that's an incredible song. Yeah. And even Graffitier, which is one of the last tracks on that album, is a really good track.
This album on my way home.
Yeah, it's good. I reckon everyone give it a shot and pretend it's not Green Day if you're into Green Day.
I don't like their really early stuff. Dookie is like, I can kind of give songs on that.
I love Dookie.
A go, but it's from Nimrod and Up is my favorite.
I love Warning.
Warning is probably my favorite of theirs.
Warning was their least selling album and they almost broke up after Warning because it was so commercially not successful. But the music is like, it's inspired. It's like folk punk, like very acoustic sounding guitars that like was inspired by Bob Dylan. Like they were listening to a lot of Bob Dylan around that time, which made them do Warning.
Get the set list up now. Set list album.
The track list, yeah. So there's Warning, Waiting, Macy's Day Parade, which is one of their best tracks as well.
Church on Sunday.
Church on Sunday, absolutely. That's a great album. Fashion Victim.
Minority.
Castaway, Minority.
That's like their best album.
I love Warning. Yeah, Warning. Everyone should listen to Warning by Green Day at least once. Even the title track is just such a fucking banger.
And I know you want to wrap up. Last thing.
No, we can keep going for a bit. I don't mind. I don't mind putting out an extended one.
Oh, okay.
I kind of want Mike Talks to just be like casual conversations with friends.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
like, if you want to come on again soon, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. American Idiot Broadway.
Oh yeah. Have you seen it?
I saw it for my 18th birthday.
Do you want to go again?
Is it coming?
One of my friends who works at Listener is doing it's like a smaller production of it on Chapel Street, and he's playing St. Jimmy.
Man, it's so
Do you want to
good.
see it? I'll
Yeah.
get tickets.
Yeah,
Yeah?
get tickets, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So they basically adapted because American Idiot, not many people realize this, but
It's a rock bar.
it's a rock opera, and it like there's a narrative, and the whole album is conceptually about like what it was like to be in America post 9/11 under the Bush administration. Like American Idiot is literally George Bush. That's the subtext of that album. And just about what growing up in post 9/11 America was like. And then they adapted it into a Broadway musical, which is so good, both if you're a fan of stage musicals and Green Day. Like, it was awesome. And Billy Joe Armstrong actually played St. Jimmy, the main character, in the Broadway musical for a while, which I thought was sick.
And there's an album of the original Broadway cast online you can listen to, and that is in itself, listening from the start to finish is incredible.
It's like listening to American Idiot, but it's just a new Broadway version. And then there's a bonus track on it called When It's Time. Have you heard When It's Time?
And Favorite Son.
Favorite Son, yeah. Favorite Son was a deleted track from American Idiot.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Poor choice.
Let's go to that and Madagascar the musical, which I already asked you about.
Yeah, I'll come to Madagascar.
Cool.
I like talking about music.
That's cool. Yeah, let's do another episode soon, a music episode.
Cool.
All right, let's wrap it here. This has been a good little an hour and 15 minutes. Keelan and Mike. Thanks for doing this, man. It was fun.
Good. Yeah, enjoyed it.
Cool. All right, I will speak to you guys. Just burped. Sorry, it's that Red Bull coming back up. I will speak to you guys later.
Bye. Later.
Yeah, thanks, mate. All right, see you guys. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Mike Talks. If you enjoyed this, make sure you check out all the other episodes of Mike Talks. There's episodes with Jack Post from Hamish and Andy, comedian Ruben Solo, Luke Kidgel, YouTuber Dave Lee Down Under, Auntie Donna's Broden Kelly, and many, many, many more. Just on this feed, it's all under Mike Talks. Hope you can check them out and share them with a friend if you like them. Head to radiomike.com.au to see all of my content and have a fantastic afternoon, evening, morning, night. Didn't know how to end this ad. See you next time. This podcast was a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to check out all our other content, stay up to date at radio.mike on Instagram, and get in touch, radiomikepod@gmail.com.